Hi guys, I hope you are doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome back to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. Well, it's that time again, another month has gone by and so it's time for my monthly wrap up of horror favourites. Any favourites of the previous month, whether that be films, TV shows, books, events, news or purchases. And I have to say that for me personally, November was a really strong month. It might be the strongest month of the year in regards to what I watched. I had a total of 3 horror rewatches, but the rest were first time watches and most of those were new releases as well. There were some meh movies, but for the most part they were really solid. So let's talk about the rewatches first really quickly. So I rewatched both the original Child's Play and the remake because I was researching for an episode of Truly Horror, and also I ended up doing a comparison / deep dive of the original and the remake as well. And I will leave a link to both of those episodes down below if you are interested in watching those. I really like the original. I think the Child's Play franchise is one of the strongest horror franchises out there. Not the strongest, but one of the strongest, and the OG still holds up in my opinion. What they created through the animatronic puppets is incredibly impressive, and I go into that in quite some detail in my comparison episode. So if you are interested in the behind the scenes stuff, definitely check them out. Really interesting stuff. The remake, on the other hand, I enjoyed less this time round. I originally watched the remake first, which I do tend to do with a lot of remakes, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a perfectly good horror movie, but after having seen the rest of the franchise now, it just didn't hold up on this rewatch for me. I just don't think it has the same magic as the original timeline in the franchise does. And I find this version of Chucky really hard to get behind as a villain because to me, for a large chunk of the movie, he's more like an innocent who just doesn't understand the world around him. But that doesn't mean that I don't love the legend that is Mark Hamill and his performance here. He's one of the strongest things about the remake. So as we're nearing the end of the year now, I can't believe we're nearing the end of 2022, but I'm trying to get my list together sorted for my ranking of the horror movies of 2022 that I've seen, and I'll be releasing that early in the new year in the beginning of January. But this year has been chocker of horror movies, and the further away I get from some of the earlier watches, the harder I'm finding it to compare them to the more recent watches. So there's a couple of them that I've picked out that I want to revisit, and with that in mind, I rewatched The Black Phone early on in the month. I'm obviously not going to tell you where it will come in my ranking. You'll have to watch that episode for that, but I really like it, and we will leave it at that. Okay, so as for first time watches, first one that I watched this month was Barbarian. Now I've already done a plot breakdown and deep dive episode for this one, which has my thoughts in it as well. And if you saw that, then you will know that I loved Barbarian. I absolutely loved it. So it's not really a spoiler to let you know that that one's going to be pretty high up my list of the ranking of 2022 horror movies. Yeah, I don't know, it came out of nowhere. For me, I only discovered it when I was researching the horror movie Still to Come about halfway through the year. And as soon as I heard about it, I just could not wait to watch it. And here in the UK, we had to wait for quite a long while after the release in America, which was really hard because we're just watching the horror community light up and buzz about this film, and we had to wait quite a while, but well worth the wait. I absolutely adored Barbarian. If you're interested in more in-depth thoughts and like a deep dive into the film, I will leave a link in the description box for that episode as well with the Child's Play ones. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about, we'll skip the meh ones. I do want to take a moment to talk about Don't Worry Darling. Now, this wasn't one of my favourites of the month, but it wasn't one of the worst either. This was one of 3 of my most anticipated movies. There was Scream, The Menu, and Don't Worry Darling. And I was worried about the film as more and more information came out. And I just felt like all the behind the scenes drama was outshining the movie itself. And I wanted to approach the film as just that, as just the film without all of the additional headlines and drama going on. So I waited a while after it had been released before I actually watched it. I finally watched it the last month. When this video comes out, it will be last month. And I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars and a heart because I think this this movie has its strengths and its weaknesses. I don't think it is as bad as some people make out, and it's not as good as I was initially hoping it would be. But as I said, strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, Florence Pugh gives an incredible performance. I don't think I've ever seen a bad performance from Florence Pugh. And it is a visually stunning movie. It could be that I am biased because I love all that vintage stuff. And so the cars, the music, the dresses, the set dressing, that really appealed to me. That was an enjoyable way to spend a couple of hours. You know, if nothing else, you could turn the sound off and it looks beautiful. And I also have to say, Harry Styles, he's fine. He's not brilliant, but he's not as bad as some people are making out. Again, can the boy give an interview about movies? No, he can't. Can the boy act? Sort of. Weaknesses. This movie just... it doesn't seem to know what it's trying to say. Or it does, but the problem is there are so many loose ends and plot holes and things like that when I'd finished the film, I was left with so many questions. I had to Google it and research it and read other reviews just to try and figure out, have I missed something? What was that point meant to be? Or, was this plot hole just something I had thought of? But no, everybody had seen the exact same things, and that's what lets this film down. Is too many questions are left in the air at the end, and you can pick apart the film and the story with too many plot holes. But I just wanted to mention it because it's not the worst. Okay, then I watched Watcher, which was brilliant. This movie is phenomenal. Okay, so Watcher stars Micah Monroe and is directed by Chloe Okuno. Am I saying that right? Okuno? This film is definitely tapping into, is it a toxic masculinity? I think so, because it's that trope of women not being believed, women sensing that something is wrong. I talked about this in more detail in my Barbarian video, which kind of tackles a similar thing of a woman having that gut reaction that something in this situation is wrong, that she's not safe, and she's telling people who should listen, a partner who loves them, the law enforcement, people who can help and should be able to believe, and then they're being dismissed as, I don't know, just worrying too much or seeing things that aren't there, or just, I don't know, being too oversensitive. And what Watcher does is, it's such a simple premise, but the way that it is written and executed, it just, I think I said in my review that it shreds your nerves, because you know that she's telling the truth. You know that they're refusing to believe her. You know the danger that's out there, and it just puts you on edge for the entire time. But that end scene is wonderful. If I was going to say watch the film, watch it for that end scene, that cathartic, I told you so, just that simple look, and that's all you need. It's wonderful. I will say that, yes, it's wonderful, but it is a frustrating watch as well. Like I said, your nerves are on edge through watching it as to what's going to happen, but there's also that frustration of mostly the husband, the police force, maybe, yeah, but the husband, it's his refusal to believe her in this situation, and also not just how he refuses, but things he says and things he does. So frustrating, but beautifully written, beautifully directed, beautifully acted, and it's just a joy to watch. Okay, next up, I watched House of Darkness, which isn't a favourite of this month. It's more of a meh. This is the other Justin Long movie that came out this year. Also stars Kate Bosworth. It's fine. It's a very slow burn movie, very character and dialogue driven, so it's not going to be for everyone. But I did watch that. And then I watched Smile finally, because a few of you guys had been asking for my opinion on it and if I had seen it yet. So I have, like Barbarian, done a plot breakdown and deep dive into that film, which I will leave a link in the description box for. I enjoyed this one. This seems to be quite divisive. People either love it or hate it, and I'm kind of just above average. I gave it 3.5. I think that this is an incredibly strong portrayal of mental health in a horror movie from both sides, from both the person who is experiencing the mental illness, but also the people around them, and how we talk about mental illness, how we think of mental illness, how we help people with mental illness. So a really good, healthy, interesting study into that, but also a really effective, scary movie. Yes, a lot of the scares are jump scares, but this is an example of them done really, really well. So I enjoyed Smile. I liked it. I've heard that there might potentially be a sequel. I don't think it needs a sequel. I think the story is done, wrapped up, and fine. Okay, next. Okay, so this one might not be a horror movie. You're probably saying to the screen, but Sarah, that's not a horror movie. But I watched The Wonder, which is another Florence Pugh movie from this year. Yes, it's probably not horror, but it is a dark thriller. So I think that it just flirts enough with horror to be acceptable to have on this list. So The Wonder is set in Ireland in the 1800s, where there is a girl who is still alive and healthy, but she hasn't eaten for about 4 months, I believe. And Florence Pugh plays a nurse who goes to watch her, observe how this is happening, along with a nun as well. So you are getting feedback from a religious person and a scientific person, and they are employed by a council of men from the village, again ranging from the preacher, an innkeeper, a landowner, things like that. The film itself, again, like I mentioned with House of Darkness, this is kind of a slow burn, and it's kind of copy, paste, repeat, where you have Florence Pugh staying at the inn, walking to the house, observing the girl, walking home, and, you know, back and forth, and lots of intercut scenes of Florence Pugh eating with food, lots of food imagery here. So it is a slow burn, but it's an incredible character study, and it's also an incredible kind of a philosophical study of the difference between science, religion, but faith in science, faith in your beliefs, and faith in religion. I would definitely recommend it. I think this is the stronger of the two Florence Pugh movies that we've had this year. It's on Netflix, so it's easily accessible. Well, if you have Netflix, it's easily accessible. The thing with The Wonder that was interesting is that the opening and the closing of it is quite interesting. Is meta the right word? Is basically making you aware that this is a film. One of the themes, aside from food and faith, science and religion, another theme is stories, about human beings being the stories that we tell each other and that we pass on through generations, and how the stories can differ depending on your own perspective. And so it's very aware and highlights the fact that this is a story itself, this is a film, and maybe it's not going to be for everyone because it might pull you out of the story, but for me, I kind of landed on it afterwards that because this is quite heavy going and because it's quite sensitive topics that it is discussing, I wondered if this film being bookmarked by these scenes of pulling you out, reminding you this is just a film, it did prevent it from tipping over into pretentious. It did soften it a little bit. But I would love to know if you've seen it, what you thought to this meta ending and beginning of the film. Okay, and then I finally watched Pearl. Oh, Pearl is brilliant. Who prefers Pearl and who prefers X? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer, because I've been trying to figure out which one I slightly prefer, and I adore both movies. Both are a 4-star and a heart. But I'm wondering if I actually prefer Pearl slightly. Anyway, let me know which you think is the best one. So Pearl is, of course, following the story of Pearl, the titular character, who was... Can I say what she was in X? Okay, well, she was one of the main characters, an important character in X. I won't say what she did in case you haven't seen the film. Yeah, I guess it's still quite recent, isn't it? Anyway, so Pearl is going back into... it's 1914, 1918 because of the First World War. So it follows Pearl and explores her character because we know her ending. We know how she ends up as a person, but we don't know how she got to that point, and that is what Pearl delves into, and I loved it. I think that Pearl is a fascinating character. She's such an interesting character study, and again, kind of tipping in towards mental health and mental illness. There's a lot of, talking about someone's mental health and how certain things can flourish and grow when you are unchecked and when you are isolated from the rest of the world, from other influences, when you're very insular, in your own little world. And Pearl, bless her, is quite a sensitive soul and feels things very passionately, very strongly, but she's living this very isolated life with no real support in terms of someone to talk to and someone to really care, because her dad's infirm and her mum is no help, and she's fanatically religious, and not that makes her unsupportive, it's just that she is unsupportive of Pearl because she feels like Pearl is sinning, and Pearl's husband Howard is off at war. So it's this character who's in this very isolated world, and just seeing this descent, seeing this journey of hers between her and her mental health, and it was really interesting. I think that Mia Goth is phenomenal in this film. I mean, she was amazing in X, but there's just something, I don't know, that certain X factor, that star quality that she has in Pearl, and that, if you've seen it, you'll know she delivers this speech towards, is it a soliloquy? This speech towards the end of the film, which is about, 10, 15 minutes long, and it's incredible. And just when you are still, recovering from this incredible performance, the movie closes with this 5-10 minute smile, this camera focusing uncomfortably close on Pearl, this smile that continues for an unnaturally long time, and it's unnerving and absolutely captivating. Like I said, really strong month this month. I mean, I watched Pearl, Smile, The Wonder, Watcher, Don't Worry Darling, Barbarian. So lots of incredibly strong horror movies, first time watches for me. So yeah, really enjoyed November. Okay, so now let's talk horror TV shows. And there is actually only one that I watched this month, as I'm also busy rewatching The Crown. But what a show it is. And it's one that I've been looking forward to watching ever since it was announced. And that is Tim Burton's Wednesday. I'm sure a lot of horror fans are checking this one out, or I don't know, maybe not. I saw some backlash over some of the casting choices, so maybe they won't be, but I'm watching it and I'm absolutely loving it. I am a huge Wednesday Addams fan of the Addams family. It's one of my gateway movies into horror. When I was younger, I would always dress up as Wednesday for Halloween, including the headless Barbie doll. And I would actually get told by a lot of people when I was younger that I looked a lot like Wednesday Addams, even to the point that I went on a French exchange with school, and some random French people actually stopped me to tell me that I looked just like Wednesday Addams. But I think it was I had quite a moody resting face. It was called the Wednesday stare. So I love Wednesday Addams. I love her as a character. And when this was announced, I thought, yeah, I trust this. Tim Burton doing it, and Jenna Ortega in the titular role. She is an incredible actress and Scream Queen. She's just knocking it out of the park at the moment. She's had a really good big year, hasn't she, with X and Studio 666 and Scream. Obviously, Scream. So yeah, absolutely loved it. And the icing on the cake was when they announced that Christina Ricci was going to be involved in it. And honestly, I was quite skeptical, thinking, oh, they're probably just going to put her in as a little cameo, just this tiny little role somewhere. But no, she's a big integral character to it. So yeah, I was really happy. I even squealed a little bit when she came on screen. And Wednesday Addams' outfits. Can we just talk about that girl's wardrobe for a moment? I mean, she's rocking the monochrome look and the Doc Martens. I want Wednesday's wardrobe, quite frankly. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't actually finished the series. I was hoping I would finish it before recording this so I could talk to you about it as a whole. But I've been really enjoying it, and I didn't just want to charge through and binge it. I wanted to actually take my time and savour it. So there are 2 episodes that I've got to watch. So I can't talk spoilers. I can't talk about the ending or reveals or anything like that. And to be honest with you, seeing as how it's still a recent release, it only came out this week on Netflix, there are possibly people who haven't seen it yet. And so I don't want to spoil anything for them anyway. I have my theories as to what is going on and who is causing what, so we will see if those theories are right. I have to say, I think overall as a series, it's accessible for younger audiences and older ones. I think it's accessible for a newer audience and long-running fans of the Addams Family. And I think that the story itself is engaging, and I want to, know what's going on. You've kind of got the two threads to it. Just had to change my camera there. My battery decided to die. I obviously spent far too long talking about Wednesday Addams. Okay, so what I was saying was the portrayal of Wednesday, I think, is really, really good. Jenna Ortega really inhabits the character that we know and love. And the performance or the delivery of this Wednesday is one that is very close to the one that we know from the previous films and the 60s series, but it has evolved slightly enough for a new generation, new audience, but just mainly because Wednesday is now of a different age. She's now 16, or she was 15 and then turned 16. But it works. It feels organic. It feels like it fits in. It's a continuation of these movies, of the younger Wednesday. And the only thing I would say about it, though, the only thing that I'm slightly concerned about having 2 episodes left to watch is within stories, in particular with our lead characters. If they're a dynamic character, they're going to grow and change and learn things from their experiences and come out of it on the other side a little bit wiser, maybe a little bit stronger. Wednesday Addams in the series, at the point that I'm at, is now learning a few things about herself and the way she's behaving. And my concern is that if she learns from this, which means she's then going to change, are those changes going to take her away from being the Wednesday Addams that we know? Obviously, her kind of character, I don't think could really function day to day in this world. She's a fictional character. But, we love her for her being the way she is. I don't need her to change and become all fuzzy and rainbows, but we'll see. Perhaps they'll find a way for this character to learn and grow and still remain true to who they are. I think I've thought about this way too much. Okay, moving on. In terms of news, there isn't really anything that I'm that excited about that has been announced in the last week or so, but I did read a couple of pieces of news that I thought I would share with you guys in case you guys were interested. First of all, there is the release of The Mean One, an unofficial Christmas horror movie, which is being released in cinemas in the US on the 9th of December, but I'm not sure if the UK is getting a release date for it at all, or if it is, when that is. It's a dark take on or / a parody of Dr. Seuss's The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which, yeah, I think is an easy story to make into a horror movie. Does it need to be made into a horror movie? I'm not sure, but the Grinch is being played by David Howard Thornton, who is best known as Art the Clown, so it has that going for it. And to be fair, if you watch the trailer, the makeup and costume of the Grinch looks pretty good. The official trailer is up on YouTube, so you can check it out for yourself to see if you fancy watching it. The other bit of news is that thanks to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which hasn't even come out yet, we now seem to be set to get an onslaught of Disney classics being turned into horror movies, and the next one is set to be Bambi. We already have a title of Bambi the Reckoning and a potential release date of Valentine's Day 2023. The concept is to turn Bambi into, quote, a vicious killing machine, end quote. Look, I'm not sure how I feel about these films. I mean, I guess I'll form an opinion, or a more rounded opinion, once I've watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, but it just feels a bit strange taking these beloved childhood classics and turning them into horror. I mean, I know a lot of them, especially ones based on Grimm's fairy tales, are quite horrifying in themselves, but I don't know. It's so many of our childhoods. Do you guys remember when there was a phase a few years ago where they were just wanting to turn literary classics and historical figures into horror? So, for example, you had things like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham the Vampire Hunter. I guess Disney Classics is just that new phase. And finally, for favourites, I have a couple of purchases to share with you. Okay, so 2 of these purchases, I will be honest, are from a company that I'm not going to mention and I don't want to promote because I had a bad experience with them. These were supposed to be gifts and didn't actually receive them till about 1.5 years after they were purchased. So if I can find them somewhere else, I will link them below. If I can't, I apologise. And maybe I shouldn't be showing them but they're a favourite of the month, so I'm going to share them anyway. And the first one is this t-shirt. I'm not even sure, can you see that? Yeah. It says, "They move, they breathe, they suck. Army of Darkness." So, beautiful colours, classic black. Oh my goodness. So, my battery had died and then my memory card filled up. So, take 3. As I was saying, I actually dressed up as Ash Williams for this Halloween, and as one of my props, I needed a Necronomicon. So, I got this. Can we see? Lovely. It's just some juicy skin on the front and back, but this is actually an adult colouring book. So inside it has pages of the Necronomicon that you can colour in, which is pretty cool. So that was my prop for Ash Williams for Halloween. I don't think I'm going to colour it, I'm just going to keep it as a prop. So the t-shirt was from the company that I do not want to name, and the Necronomicon was actually from Amazon, which I will leave a link for this down below. And my final piece is probably my most favourite, because one of my favourite movies in the world is Hot Fuzz, the middle film in the Cornetto trilogy. And while even its creator, Edgar Wright, says that it is the action entry, I stand by it being a slasher. It is a slasher movie. There is a hidden killer silently and sneaking around killing people off. It's a mystery of who they are. You have your final boy in Nicholas Angel. It's a slasher movie, so it's going in horrors, but it is this tumbler. I don't know if you can see. So on the front it says The Crown, Sanford, which is the village which Nicholas Angel goes to work in, and on the other side you have the Neighbourhood Watch Alliance for the greater good. So I absolutely love this, and it's actually heat changing. I don't know if you can see, but when it gets warm it turns white, and that again is from the company that I'm not mentioning, but if I can find it anywhere else I will leave a link for you in the description box. Okay guys, there you go. That was my November wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to let me know your own favourites of November and anything that you're looking forward to in the month of December. I have no idea how this video is going to turn out because it is almost pitch black outside in the wonderful UK weather, and my battery died and my memory filled up. So yes, lots of faffing behind the scenes, but hopefully with my editing skills it will all feel seamless. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you as always in the next episode. Bye guys. Nightmare.